Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. 5 days after Fan Yunxiao left, numerous people in strange outfits started to appear on the small island. They were male, female, young, and old. One person had come over first and planted a flag on the island. Then, numerous lights flashed and more flags appeared. Once the flags were put away, several hundred people appeared and sat down around this island. The positions of everyone sitting were different and they were all scattered about like stars in the sky, not moving at all. However, every 4 hours, these people would stand up and change their positions. This regular pattern never changed. Under the shade of the tree, Long Jiaonan shuddered and walked to the center of the island. Cai Yunxiang was very happy on the other hand, making meals for everyone in case they were hungry. Ling Yuxiu had a grave expression as she examined her surroundings. She could see that this was a huge formation which trapped all of them on the island, not giving them the chance to leave. If one was to barge out of this formation, the formation would activate and transform into a killing formation, turning this island into a scene of carnage. When this huge formation was activated, it would definitely be incomparably terrifying. Furthermore, Ling Yuxiu even saw some of the weird people wearing clothes of the imperial court. Some were high officials of the current imperial court, some were peddlers in the market, some executioners in charge of beheadings, and even directorates of imperial college. They were all fantastic oddities of every description. The most intriguing thing was that these people were changing their positions every 4 hours to change the formation. This should be to prevent Dao Master from solving the changes of the formation. Heavenly Devil Cult is no doubt the #1 sect of the Devil Path. Your timings are very precise. Old Dao Master was examining this killing formation, and he couldn't help exclaiming to himself endlessly, I can calculate the changes in the formation in precisely 4 hours, and they changed the formation at precisely this moment. Formation Hall Master is really crafty. Formation Hall Master was the directorate of Imperial College's Hall of Array Element and was bestowed the role of an Imperial Secretary by Emperor Yang Feng. He was a favorite of the Emperor and was frequently summoned to the palace to be consulted with matters of the Empire. Even though the Emperor didn't give him any actual power due to the fact he was from Heavenly Devil Cult, most of the formations in the army were designed by him. It seemed like Formation Hall Master had knowledge about Old Dao Master, so as long as Qin Mu was in trouble, he would definitely not allow him to leave alive. If he was to leave, he had to be dead. The 14th day came in no time, and Qin Mu shut his eyes. After a moment, he opened them and came from the stone tablet. He saluted Dao Master. Senior brother, much thanks for letting me comprehend Dao Sword. Dao Master got up to return the salute. I dare not. Human Emperor of course has the right to comprehend Dao Sword. I have shown Dao Sword to you and Rulai will also show Rulai's Mahayana Sutra to you. Human Emperor is worthy of us doing so. Qin Mu said, I've already seen Rulai's Mahayana Sutra. Dao Master was stunned. After some time, he shook his head and smiled. This old fellow is still clever and sly, always one step ahead of me. Disciple, hand great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures back to Human Emperor. Daozi Lin Xian came back to his senses from his comprehension and immediately pulled great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures back into a ball of thread, passing it back to Qin Mu with both hands. Qin Mu smiled. Your age and mine are similar, so there's no need for so many formalities. Daozi Lin Xian shook his head and said, there's nothing wrong with formalities. I am not yet Dao Master and will always be your junior. Helpless, Qin Mu said, even though Dao Master had never seen great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures before, his phrase that it contains evil and good achieved the samadhi of great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures. How much good and how much evil did you see when you were comprehending great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures? Daozi Lin Xian hesitated for a moment and Dao Master smiled. He said, Cult Master Qin is an expert in this field, so just speak your mind. Daozi Lin Xian said, it might be because first impressions are strongest that when I first read great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures, I found almost every sentence to be harmful. Only when I read until the writings in the middle did I feel a different flavor to them. At that time, there was no longer righteous or evil in my heart. When I reached the writings at the end, I felt that I might have misinterpreted the writings in front, so I read over them again, and this time I had different thoughts and feelings. Qin Mu smiled and asked, "How many % of them are evil?" "There's still 20%, Daozi Lin Xian replied honestly. Qin Mu said, "Your Dao heart is still 20% devilish. However, you are already much better than Fozi." When Fozi Fashin read great educational heavenly devil scriptures, every part of it was evil to him. He may have had the appearance of a Buddha, but he was an unsalvageable devil in his heart. Daozi Lin Xian was stunned and came to an enlightenment. So that's why? He found it somewhat hard to accept this result in his heart, so he asked Qin Mu with his gaze flickering, when human emperor read great educational heavenly devil scriptures, how many % of it was devil? All of the writings in great educational heavenly devil scriptures are righteous writings, but they are also devilish writings. It all depends on how I use them. Daozi Lin Xian was stunned. This? Qin Mu said with a deep meaning, the path of the saint is none other than the everyday use of common people, which is the first sentence of great educational heavenly devil scriptures, already makes things clear. You and I are also part of the common people, so when the hearts of you and I are righteous, great educational heavenly devil scriptures are righteous. When the hearts of you and I are evil, great educational heavenly devil scriptures will be evil. I can use them as a righteous technique, but I can also use them as an evil technique. The wonders of usage lie in one's heart. The wonders of usage lie in one's heart. Daozi Lin Xian was stunned again and felt that what Qin Mu said was very logical. Old Dao Master immediately shouted, "Tut! Don't listen to his teachings, it's their askew reasoning of being free from nature. You are the next Dao Master, be careful of being bewitched by his clever words and entering his devil cult." Daozi Lin Xian came back to his senses, sweating profusely. His entire body was drenched as he thought to himself, he used the chance to guide me to talk about the teachings of the devil cult, attempting to bewitch me. His teachings of being free from nature are different from my Dao sect's teachings of Dao following the nature. Old Dao Master said righteously, Cult Master Qin's nature is indeed higher than yours, so you will have to be careful if he comes against you with the identity of the devil cult master in the future. You can't only think of him as the human emperor and forget that he is also the heavenly devil cult master. Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Old Dao Master was actually treating him like severe floods and fierce beasts, paying extra attention to guiding his disciple to prevent him from being pulled into heavenly devil cult. Old Dao Master said, "How does human emperor see Dao sword?" Qin Mu said solemnly, "I struggled with the mathematical reasonings, they were extraordinarily intricate. The last few moves also seemed to transcend from mathematical reasonings and close in on Dao." Old Dao Master smiled as he said words with a deep meaning to them. The Dao sword of my Dao sect can also be seen as how to accurately measure a circle. The digits of pi are close to endless, and the circular ratio of pi can't conclude with just Shu Kong and Qing Jing, since at the back there are still digits that couldn't be counted. Dao has no end, and pi also has no end, so why is there a need to change Dao? Why is there a need to transform Dao? Qin Mu was stunned. This old Dao Master was propagating righteousness and justice of Dao sect to him. Dao Master, take care not to overdo it, Qin Mu said with a smile. Old Dao Master laughed and had Daozi Lin Xian take back the stone wall. Human Emperor, your identity is special and there will be quite a number of terrifying enemies, so it's still best for you to return to Great Ruins as soon as possible. The daughter of the Dragon King was sent by me, could you let old Dao bring her back? Qin Mu looked at the Solomon seals under their feet, noticing that a few leaves had already grown out from most the herbs, however, there were also some that had already died. You don't have to worry, she will listen to my words and never come back here again. Old Dao Master smiled. You didn't lose anything, while she was the one who lost much. Qin Mu nodded and called Long Jiaonan forward. The woman endured her pain and stumbled over. Qin Mu asked, are you still going to be my enemy? My Dragon Rider sect was eradicated because of you, I have no choice but to be enemies with you. Without me, your Dragon Rider sect would still have been eradicated. This was simply the reality of your situation. Even if I hadn't been in Heaven Wave City, you guys would still have met the same end, Qin Mu told her. I was there only by coincidence. It's natural for you to hate me, but the next time you come, I will kill you, I won't hold back. Long Jianan gritted her teeth. I won't hold back as well. Qin Mu shook his head. You already have no chance. Don't shed your skin anymore. The more you shed, the older you'll get. Follow Dao Master and leave. Long Jianan stood beside Dao Master in a daze. Every time she met Qin Mu, she would discover that he was stronger than he was previously. The next time she saw him, would she still be his match? Did she still have a chance? However, her wisdom was soon drowned out by her hatred, throwing this momentary daze to the back of her mind. Old Dao Master cupped his fists and said, farewell. Qin Mu returned his salute and rose. Send Dao Master off. Whoosh! All of the Hall Masters, Guardians, and Heavenly Kings of Heavenly Devil Cult stood up and opened up a path. Old Dao Master brought Long Jianan and Daozi Lin Xian out of the island. A cloud then appeared under their feet to bring the three of them away. Qin Mu looked at the Heavenly Devil Cult followers around and waved his hand with a smile. Disperse, disperse. Everyone saluted him and their huge flags swept around them, making them vanish without a trace. However, Heavenly King Yu and Heavenly King Wang remained. It was evident that they were worried about Qin Mu's safety. Qin Mu smiled. No need to be so worried about me, you guys can leave as well. The two Heavenly Kings looked each other in the eyes. Using their clothes to cover themselves, they vanished on the spot. I don't think they will go far, Cai Yunxiang said. Qin Mu nodded, but Ling Yuxia was anxious. Great Cult Master, you only care about putting on airs in front of your subordinates and let them leave, so how are we leaving? Qin Mu hesitated for a moment. He was indeed putting on airs. The elders of the village had taught him to never lose airs even if he lost to others, so he didn't let the followers of Heavenly Devil Cult bring him off this island on the East Sea so that he didn't lose face in front of them. Do you think Fen Yunxiao will come back for us? He probed. The two girls laughed grimly and said in unison, he cried so miserably when he left, of course he won't be coming back. Qin Mu muttered, why don't we return back by the sea? We have no choice then. Cai Yunxiang looked back at the spirit spring, a little unwilling to leave. Say, do you think the Solomon seals will still remember us when they wake up? I don't know. Qin Mu turned back and saw the overflowing greenery beside the spirit spring and shook his head. They died once, so if they had souls, they should have already landed into the dark Yudu. Yet their bodies will come back to life. As for whether their souls will still be the original ones and their memories their original memories or whether a new soul will be born in their bodies with their memories like a sheet of blank paper, I do not know. Cai Yunxiang was slightly depressed. But she saw Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiao already on the sea surface, so she immediately chased after them. A wave grew under Qin Mu's feet and continued to surge forth like a dragon head, carrying them toward the west. Meanwhile, at another place, Grand Shaman received news from Pangong Tso and immediately left Roland's golden palace to head to the west. He walked for a long time around the vast great ruins, traveling through the snow mountains and into the flaming desert. He came to West Earth and climbed the highest peak there. The golden peak of this divine mountain was empty, with only a sacrificial altar remaining. Grand Shaman took out 3 incenses and lighted them. The smoke rose in spirals and reached high heavens. Where the smoke vanished, a green-colored face appeared in the sky, almost blending with the blue sky. The new human emperor has appeared, Grand Shaman said while burning incense to pay his respect. The green face in the sky was very huge and seemed to be formed by smoke which was light and faint. However, as it started coming lower, it gradually became clearer. Fine beads of sweat emanated from Grand Shaman's forehead, and his head fell down, the man too afraid to lift it up. High heavens! A faintly discernible voice came from the sky. Got it. Grand Shaman stood motionless. The golden peak of the divine mountain was very cold, yet his sweat kept dripping down, drop after drop. After a long time, he secretly raised an eye to look up at the sky and saw that it was clear blue. The face had vanished some time ago. Grand Shaman let out a sigh of relief and quickly left to get away from here as far as possible. A long time later, tiny flames appeared on the golden peak and shook like ripples. When they stopped shaking, two golden-eyed swannies galloped out from the flames while pulling a treasured carriage. An imperial canopy was erected in its center, and under it were items like jade and pearls that formed a hanging screen. On top of the imperial canopy were three golden peaks that were circular lumps, each smaller than the one above it. There were 4 golden pillars supporting the imperial canopy which were as thick as an arm and were 7 feet tall. Besides each pillar stood a beautiful maiden, their vital chi forming a ring at the back of their heads. Their robes fluttered in the wind, and they were all wearing different colored attire. The maiden in green was carrying a jade vase in her hand, the maiden in red was hugging a 7-stringed guqin, the maiden in yellow was carrying a sword in both of her hands, while the maiden in white was hugging a peeper. Under the imperial canopy and past the jade and pearls, a man in purple could be seen sitting upright. He was still and had an extraordinary atmosphere. The two swannies' bodies overflowed with brilliant lights and vibrant colors as they stepped on auspicious clouds while pulling the treasure carriage at a lightning-fast speed toward Middle-earth. The treasure carriage wasn't careful like Grand Shaman, who had avoided the vast great ruins. This carriage just drove straight in, leaving a trail of light as it rushed toward Eternal Peace Empire. The people in the carriage seemed to not mind the dangers of great ruins at all. When night fell, darkness enveloped the land, and the two swannies emanated flames that rose into the sky. They were extremely eye-catching in the darkness as they pulled the treasured carriage in the dark. Devil Chi poured and suddenly transformed into a pitch-black palm that darted toward the treasured carriage and the glow given off by the swannies. Every place it passed by, light was swallowed and only darkness was left. When the pitch-black palm came in front of the treasured carriage, no light could be seen, and the pearl curtain swayed as the maiden in red played her guqin, giving off 2 sounds of ding and dong. Once guqin sound echoed in the air, the pitch-black palm paused slightly and moved back. "High heavens," a raspy voice asked from the darkness. That maiden in red nodded and said, "High heavens, Star Sovereign Chiao." The monster in the darkness retreated and vanished without a trace. From then on, no more monsters went to disturb the treasured carriage. Even though great ruins in the darkness seemed incomparably dangerous, it was still pretty bustling at night. All kinds of terrifying things were active, and all kinds of bizarre incidents were happening one after another. The treasured carriage drove toward the east in a neither too fast nor too slow pace. The Star Sovereign Chiao under the imperial canopy looked at the current great ruins and shook his head. The remaining evils have not yet been purged, and poison still remains. The treasured carriage flew in the sky, leaving a streak across the darkness. Looking up from below, it seemed like there was a star that moving neither too fast nor too slow across the horizon. The night of great ruins was shrouded by the darkness, and there were no stars nor moon in the sky, so most of the villagers and strange beasts hiding in the ruins couldn't help raising their heads to look up at the sight that they had never seen before. Suddenly, the star started to descend urgently, crashing into great ruins from the sky. This made all the people and strange beasts that were watching sigh in pity. Boom! The treasured carriage descended diagonally toward the source of surging river. The 2 mountains in the darkness were like a gate, and the treasured carriage came down in the middle between them. The 2 swannies struggled to control the descent, but no matter what, they couldn't do it. In the end, they couldn't help yelping. The 4 maidens on the carriage were also flustered. They realized that they had become skeletons some time ago. The 4 maidens looked ahead of them and saw the 2 swannies that were pulling the carriage had also become 2 galloping skeletons. Under the imperial canopy, there was another skeleton. He was calm and composed as he snorted coldly. "To pull my carriage down, could it be that Fengdu's evil intentions are still not dead yet?" In the darkness and fog in front of them, there seemed to be huge shadows standing around. There were even red lights lighting up in the fog, and what looked like lanterns followed the treasured carriage as it moved. Those weren't lanterns though, but eyes. The shadows gradually faded, and the red lights vanished one after another as well. The flesh on the 2 swannies came back, and they didn't feel that the carriage was heavy once more. They immediately exerted force and pulled the treasured carriage back into the sky. The 4 maidens on the carriage saw their flesh recovering and couldn't help letting out sighs of relief. Star Sovereign Chiao's body also returned back to normal, and he said indifferently, "Fengdu, not heeding the discipline of Yudu, to even dare go against high heavens. This place will be gotten rid of sooner or later. The treasured carriage continued to move forward along surging river, but only when the sky was turning bright did they see the end of great ruins that was over 1,000 miles away from them. Suddenly, a sword light rose from below and exploded in mid-air. Instantly, snow-bright lights burst forth, and they actually eclipsed the light from the sun. The Swanis and the 4 maidens on the carriage immediately closed their eyes. When they opened them later, the 4 maidens cried out in astonishment. The world-shaking sword light had vanished, and in front of the carriage were majestic mountains and rivers. The towering peaks and precipitous ridges were unending. What was weird was that these mountains and rivers weren't there just a moment ago, but now were seemed to be floating on the clouds. It was as if they had grown out from the clouds. The rivers flowing out from the towering mountains and precipitous ridges were even giving off sounds of crashing water. There was even a waterfall running down from the cliffs, flowing down like jade. These green mountains and azure water floated among the clouds, and there was nothing abnormal about them. They didn't look like mirages. "Halt," Star Sovereign Qiao said slowly. The 2 Swanis halted, and Star Sovereign Qiao stood up to look at the end of the mountains and rivers. Yet they stretched into the distance as if growing by themselves. The mountains in the clouds were majestic and vast, appearing continuously from below the clouds. Meanwhile, at the borders of the mountains and rivers were flashing sword lights that were hard to catch, but which couldn't deceive his eyes. This was as if someone was using a sword as a brush to draw out vast mountains and rivers. Old Handicapped is actually still alive. Star Sovereign Qiao revealed and smiled and said softly, "Go down. I have an old friend living here." The 2 Swanis immediately pulled the treasured carriage to descend. When they reached the bottom of the clouds, the mountains and rivers also descended with them. The mountain and rivers lowered along with their pace, blocking the path in front of them all the time. Finally, the treasured carriage landed on the ground, and the mountains and rivers in the sky also became smaller and smaller, continuing to retract. When the mountains and rivers disappeared, a small village beside the river appeared in front of them. Star Sovereign Qiao looked through the pearl curtain and saw a recliner at the entrance of this village. On the recliner lay an old man without 4 limbs. The recliner creaked as it swayed back and forth while the messy old man without limbs enjoyed the spring sun leisurely. "You are handicapped." Star Sovereign Qiao didn't get off the carriage. He simply spoke from behind the pearl curtains. "You don't have arms and you don't have legs, yet you still want to block my way. Aren't you overestimating yourself a little?" Village chief beamed at him as he continued swaying on the recliner. It seemed to be very comfortable for him to lie there as he said leisurely, "In that case, why don't you try? I have no arms and legs and only a few years of lifespan left, so you should definitely have the confidence to kill me, right?" Star Sovereign Qiao snorted coldly. "You don't have many years left to live, so you can't protect the new human emperor. However, I won't use my life to fight head-on with that disabled life of yours. If you don't dare to fight with your life, then return." Suddenly, village chief's vital qi transformed into arms and legs so he could stand up from the recliner. As he walked towards the treasured carriage, the 2 Swanis instantly felt their blood run cold, and the 4 maidens on the carriage also revealed appalled expressions. In their eyes, the dry and thin old man's body became bigger and bigger, more and more majestic as he came closer. With a few steps, his body seemed to cover the heaven and earth, blocking their line of sight. "You can't protect the new human emperor." Star Sovereign Qiao stood up, and the imperial canopy on the carriage started to spin. The pillars under the canopy became thicker and thicker, as well as taller and taller. As the imperial canopy expanded in the wind, the jade and pearls became bigger as well, as if they were stars that surrounded the Star Sovereign. The 4 maidens in front of him seemed incomparably small, and the 2 pure-blooded Swanis which had huge bodies also seemed pitifully small at this instant. ZHNNG. The sword from the maiden in yellow came out from its sheath and landed in Star Sovereign Qiao's hand. He swung his sword and met with the sword swung by the old man in front of him. The instant the 2 sword lights met, surging river was cut off and the water started flowing backward. The bright sword lights vanished with a flash. Where the sword lights had vanished, Village Chief was still sitting in the recliner and creaking as he swayed. Star Sovereign Xiao had also sat back down, and the size of the treasured carriage had returned back to normal. It was as if the giant and the sky full of stars had been just an illusion. I won't kill the human emperor, but other people will come. Star Sovereign Xiao looked at the elder lying in the chair across the pearl curtains and said indifferently, some young people from high heavens will find him. Village Chief said lazily, as long as it isn't you old farts, feel free to send them. Star Sovereign Xiao looked at him deeply and suddenly said, return to high heavens. The two Swanees immediately turned the carriage around and rose into the sky, galloping back into the west. On the carriage, the maiden in green asked, Star Sovereign, why are we returning just like this? Star Sovereign Xiao didn't say a word, but suddenly grunted. Droplets of blood dripped down from the carriage and landed in the forest of great ruins that was below them. Wherever the fresh blood landed, flowers would bloom in the entire mountain and plants would grow in a frenzy. They spread until they covered the whole mountain. Whoosh! The imperial canopy fell backward and dropped into great ruins, scattering all the jades and pearls in the wilderness. Star Sovereign Xiao's face was slightly pale as he said solemnly, no need to pick them up, return to high heavens as soon as possible. The four maidens were shocked and the two Swanees increased their speed as they galloped toward the west. At the gate of disabled elderly village, the recliner swayed when the chair split into pieces. Village Chief fell to the ground and called out in a hoarse voice, Apothecary, apothecary. Apothecary ran out in a panic and grumbled, still want to put up a strong front when you don't even have any limbs, serves you right. Stop moving, let me check on your injuries first. Apothecary diagnosed Village Chief and grumbled, one's muscles and bones are not as capable when they are old, what's more, you don't even have muscles and bones already. Stubbornly wanted to show off, didn't you? Happy now? Village Chief panted heavily. His injuries are heavier than mine. I have fought basically all of the strong practitioners of high heavens before. Look at how capable you are. Apothecary used needles to suppress his injuries and shook his head. Didn't you still get your limbs severed by someone with a sword? When I passed the position of the human emperor to Qin Mu, I knew that such a day would come when people would come to find Mu. Village Chief gaze became faint as he looked away. High heavens will not tolerate the existence of a human emperor. I was already old and disabled, so they didn't pay any attention to me. However, they will definitely get rid of the new human emperor. Star Sovereign Xiao is one of the very best in high heaven, so I had to intercept him and make him back off. This way, it won't be strong practitioners like him that will come after Mu. They have to follow by the rules, and if they try to go around them, I will force them to follow the rules. Apothecary prescribed medicine for him as he said, so what happens after you die? Will they still go according to the rules? Village Chief was silent for a moment before revealing a sudden smile. A human emperor while alive, and a ghost hero when dead. My life can be extinguished, but my will to battle will last forever. It's probably time for you to go out for a walk. Apothecary shuddered and shook his head. I'm not going out, whoever that wants to go out can go out. In West Earth Divine Mountain, Star Sovereign Xiao's carriage landed, and the Star Sovereign mustered his vital chi with difficulty. Just as he was about to return back to high heavens, he vomited blood, and the injuries on his body instantly split apart. He raised his hand with difficulty at the four maidens. Light the incenses. The four maidens were astonished, and the maiden in green hurriedly took out 3 sticks of incense, lighting them up on the altar. After a moment, a face appeared in the sky looking down. I've met the old human emperor, Star Sovereign Xiao said while gasping for breath. Even though he's old and handicapped, he is not yet dead. His abilities have increased tremendously and I was injured by him. His intention is that if the older generation goes to find the new human emperor, he will definitely take things into his own hands, however, he won't interfere if it's the younger generation. He's still alive? The face revealed an astonished expression as its faint voice floated in the air. Star Sovereign, who do you plan on sending from high heavens to get rid of the new human emperor? Young Master Shu Shenhua. That face in the sky became slightly grave. Is there a need to mobilize young Master Shu? Star Sovereign Xiao nodded. The old fellow is old and is close to death. The new human emperor is still young and not yet mature. Getting rid of the new human emperor can cut short our troubles forever. A beam of light descended from the sky and shone on Star Sovereign Qiao's body, forming a road from light. The face in the sky said, "Young Master Shu might not be willing to leave the mountain, you will have to tell it to him personally." Star Sovereign Qiao said to the four maidens, "You, Qing, Yao, Jing, stay here and bring along my 4 treasures to support young Master Shu in killing the new human emperor. I shall return to high heavens, but young Master Shu will come down soon." The 4 maidens acknowledged his words and walked down from the carriage. The 2 Swanis pulled onto the ruined carriage and rose into the sky along the road of light, returning back to high heavens. When the light vanished, the 4 maidens looked at one another, and Yu Liu said, "Old Master has instructed us to follow young Master Shu to kill the new human emperor, but we still don't know who is the new human emperor." Jing Yang said, "This news was spread out by Roland's Golden Palace, so we will have to take a trip there. Qing Ying, Yao Hua, visit that place, Yu Liu and I shall wait here for young Master Shu." The 2 other girls nodded and went down the mountain. They didn't walk into great ruins but instead crossed West Earth, the flaming desert, and the Snow Mountains plateau, heading straight to Roland's Golden Palace. Without Star Sovereign Qiao, they didn't dare to step into great ruins directly. In the East Sea, Qin Mu, Sai Yunxiang, and Ling Yuxiu were drifting on the water. When it came to night time, the surface of the sea suddenly glowed. It came from countless special fish that came to the surface, lighting up the sea like jewels. Qin Mu controlled the waves to move forward, and the glowing fish leaped out from his waves one after another. As he moved forward, the fish also hurried with the waves, making it quite interesting. Some fish had 2 feelers growing from their forehead, at the end of which were transparent lumps of flesh that were the size of a fist. These lumps were like lanterns which gave off a faint glow at night, so these creatures were known as lantern fish. The lantern fish grew fins that were like wings. When they rushed out of the waves, they would shake their 4 fins to fly dozens of yards in the air before landing back into the water. These strange fish would sometimes swim with the trio, floating beside them to light up the sea for them. At times, some huge fish that were 3 to 6 yards long also came, flapping their fins to look at them curiously. Sai Yunxiang was still a kid at heart, so once she saw that the huge lantern fish had some intelligence, she wanted to play with them and started teaching them to talk, word by word. Out of her expectations, a few of the huge fish actually managed to learn a sentence or 2 and speak the human language. On their way, the group passed by the territory of a sea tribe and numerous maidens floated out from the water. They waved their tails, swimming to and fro around the waves and singing a melodious love song. The song they were singing was about 2 maidens liking the same youth and all the feelings and moods of the girls. There were also a few giant clams and conches that had turned into spirits, clapping their shells to accompany the song. Ling Yuxiu and Sai Yunxiang became shy after listening to the song by the maidens of the sea tribe. They secretly glanced at the youth beside them and couldn't help feeling slightly furious. They discovered that Qin Mu wasn't hurrying on his way with his full attention. Instead, he was in a daze, his heart not focused on hurrying, but neither was he listening to the melodious song from the maidens of the sea tribe. He was focused on comprehending his path. They didn't know what he was comprehending. Even though there was a smile on his face, his heart wasn't set on the beautiful scenery in front of him nor on the girls beside him. Qin Mu had been trying to comprehend unity technique of 6 directions realm for the entire journey, and he finally reached the crucial period in the last few days. This scoundrel, he deserves to be alone for the rest of his life. The 2 girls were furious. Dao Master allowed Qin Mu to comprehend Dao Sword for 14 days, and he reaped quite the reward. Even though Dao Sword was made of sword skills, the mathematical reasonings and sword reasonings in it seemed to be able to merge into numerous techniques, thus it was worth to learn from it. Another hour later, Qin Mu's vital qi gradually weakened, and the speed of the waves going forward also slowed. They gradually shrunk down. Ling Yuxiu immediately took over and executed her spell, making a water dragon carry the 3 of them forward. Qin Mu, on the other hand, relaxed while standing on the water dragon, letting Ling Yuxiu bring him along. Six Directions Divine Treasure was a huge improvement to cultivating people, and no matter if it was spells, sword skills, or battle techniques, all of them would be raised to the level of divine arts. This multiplied their power by several times. At this realm, the techniques had to be able to link Spirit Embryo, 5 elements, and 6 Directions Divine Treasures together to mobilize the energy in these 3 great divine treasures. Qin Mu's Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique was a technique but had no skills. Woodcutter's teachings had skills but no path. Great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures covered everything in the world but lacked unity. However, the 3 of them together could form an entire body. Yet Qin Mu wanted more. He wanted the transformations of 9 Dragons Monarch technique, the stability of Rulai's Mahayana Sutra, as well as the maths of Tao Sword to be incorporated into his technique. 9 Dragons Monarch technique was proficient in transformations, and Emperor Yangfeng had imparted this technique to him and even guided him in cultivation. Even though the time Qin Mu had cultivated this technique was short, he had already understood the true essence of this technique's transformations. The transformations of 9 Dragons Monarch technique could be said to lie in one's heart. The divine dragons had myriad transformations, and through them, the sword skills, spells, and battle techniques of the other sects could all be executed. The moves could be fierce and strong, but also soft and gentle. Rulai's Mahayana Sutra was proficient in stability. Old Rulai had not personally taught Qin Mu this technique, but he had allowed him to enter heaven's cloisters to comprehend. Qin Mu had gone through all 20 cloisters of them, which meant he had mastered Rulai's Mahayana Sutra. There were 20 heavens in Rulai's Mahayana Sutra. The blessings from the gods and devils from there allowed one to be incomparably stable, unmovable like Mount Meru. Tao Sword was proficient in algebra, using mathematical reasonings to explain the nature of heaven and earth and the great Tao. When it came to the 14th sword, it was already close to Tao. If these 3 techniques could be mastered via comprehensive studies and combined into one, merging their advantages with unity technique, Qin Mu would definitely improve by leaps and bounds once again. However, for the past few days, he had focused his mind on this, yet his returns were few. The techniques he wanted to merge were all top-notch, and each and every one of them were all-inclusive. They were the ultimate arts of their sect and were all supreme ultimate arts of a sacred ground. If they could all be merged, wouldn't it result in the #1 technique in the world? I got a little greedy. Qin Mu suddenly felt like he was wasting time on an unsolvable problem. These techniques were already perfected, so if he really wanted to merge them, it was impossible for him to do so with his current knowledge. That being the case, why did it have to be so troublesome? What I want is the reasonings behind these techniques, and this being the case, why do I have to merge the techniques? Wouldn't it be easier to merge their reasonings? Among the beautiful night scenery on the sea, he was suddenly enlightened and felt his frame of mind relax. He also felt the sea and the girls beside him becoming more charming and moving. Trying to merge the techniques was something he couldn't do. Besides, doing so would neglect the fundamentals by concentrating on the details. On top of that, merging reasonings and not techniques was much easier. Once he came around to this point, he no longer insisted on his path, but instead became free from nature, cultivating however he felt comfortable. Once they crossed the territory of the sea tribe, the sea became much quieter. A huge turtle floated over and offered to carry them on their way. This turtle had attainments in cultivation and floated on the sea surface like a small island. As he swam toward the west, he inquired them about some problems he faced during cultivation. Qin Mu and the 2 girls told him everything they knew and solved many doubts he had. The old turtle was very happy and invited them as guests. Qin Mu asked in curiosity, "Where is old Mister's home? Where do we go to be guests? The 4 seas are my home, but even though I say so, there are some children living on my back." When the old turtle said this, numerous turtles surfed up on the waves and leaped onto the back of the old turtle. Lights! The old turtle smiled and the huge luminous pearls on the turtle shell lighted up, making the island on the turtle's back brightly lit. The small turtles stood up on their 2 hind flippers and started dancing and singing around Qin Mu, Ling Yuxiu, and Sai Yunxiao. They slapped their bellies and shells as they danced and sang. Sai Yunxiang pulled Qin Mu to join in the singing and dancing on the island, and after fooling around for a moment, Qin Mu also pulled Ling Yuxiu up. The princess was still slightly reserved at first, but she soon joined them. The night of celebration went by fast, and when the day broke, the old turtle said, "We have reached land, farewell, my friends." Qin Mu looked up ahead and saw a land not far away. The city and the harbor were shrouded in early spring morning mist. The trio jumped from the turtle's back and landed on the harbor. "Goodbye." The small turtles waved at them. "Goodbye." Qin Mu also waved back at them. When the old turtle disappeared, they walked into River Prefecture City. "What a charming sea," Ling Yuxiu said with a soft voice. Cai Yunxiang's gaze was still blurry. "What an enthralling night at sea. However, after stepping on land, we have returned back to the mortal world." This video will end here.